come up. I believe we are recording now. Yes. All right, we are recording. So, welcome everybody uh, to the 1st of December of 2020. There's only 30 days left in this nonsense, but we intend to be here for the duration and into the 2021. So, we're welcoming back Scott for another episode of the Bench Doctor. We are on the Facebook page, on Twitter, and on our Twitch stream. YouTube doesn't allow live handling of firearms on any of the live videos that they let us have. So we're going to put this up afterwards, hopefully, and it'll stick this time. Scott's got a bunch of interesting crap to show us tonight, and I use crap in a very
loving way,
literal, loving way. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Scott for an evening of complete garbage.
Yeah. Hey, all. Thanks for joining. We just figured tonight we might make it kind of fun. People ask all the time about various guns in my collection. What's your favorite? Blah blah. And it's like picking your favorite kid. But I today brought some of my least favorite. But they're sort of my favorite in their own way, as far as like meme value or just completely, impractical and silly. But before I start, I wanted to mention a couple of things. People ask questions all the time about all kinds of things, tools and such. And a couple of purchases I made recently from Brownells are some roll pin punches to replace some that I have that are fairly beat up. These are made by Grace tools, and they're thus far the best I've ever used. I really like them. So if you're looking for a set of roll pin punches, Brownells has these Grace. They're a little bit more, but they so far are really worth the money. And then I also got from them a set of Brownells roll pin punch starters. And if you'll notice, they have a hole in the end of it. So you find the one that the roll pin fits in, and you use that to start it in the hole, give it a little tap, and then follow up with your roll pin punch. And I was doing some gas blocks over the weekend, and it is a godsend for those little tiny roll pins, trying to hold them with a pair of needle nose or something like that. These solve that problem, and they're made by Brownells. I highly recommend those. So I thought I'd share that since those are useful things. And then as far as holsters, I ordered this on the recommendation of a friend. I realize it's leather, and everybody thinks Kydex is the greatest, but this is made by Kramer, and it's for my P365, and it is hands down the most comfortable holster I've ever used. Wore it all weekend, and I forgot that it was even there. And it's rigid as heck. I mean, I don't know what they do to this leather. Probably don't want to know, but it is not going to collapse in on itself and be a danger to the trigger, as people fear with these. But so anyway, those are some things that I picked up and thought they might be helpful. But tonight, I figured I'd show you some of the crown jewels of my collection. And we're going to kind of go over the Taurus Curve and the HiPoint C9 with the special edition $100 bill grips. I don't know if they're just still available, but I couldn't pass them up. They are phenomenal. They're grips. That's all I can say about them. They're not any grippier than the standard ones, but they are way more stylish. And you'll also notice on this fine piece of firearms engineering, I mounted a set of sights on the side of the slide as well as the top. So if you are inclined to shoot it sideways, you're able to do that with this one. I need to replace the fiber optic that was in here that kind of flew out, but with some practice, you can actually shoot this reasonably accurate sideways if you so choose. But you'll notice also all of these guns are empty. None of them are loaded. We have a chamber flag indicating the chamber is empty. Magazines are empty. Same here. Chamber flag. Magazine is empty. Gun is empty. So without further ado, let's get into the nuts and bolts of these things. We'll start off with the Taurus Curve. And I don't know even if they still sell these things. They were designed as a sort of a nothing but a concealed carry gun. And it's called the Curve because if you look at it, no, your monitor isn't out of whack. It is actually curved right here. And that was done to fit the contours of your hip, or around the waistband. It was curved to fit that way. It also comes with this belt clip on it to clip, just instead of a holster, you would just clip this inside your pants. And it also has this cover that goes over the trigger. And it goes down into your pocket. So as you draw the weapon, that comes off, exposing the trigger. And it's supposed to turn on what else but the blinding light and laser that are attached to the front of the gun. The light is probably about 7 lumens. I don't know. It's not very bright, but the laser can be seen up to about 18 inches. So it is, well, I can barely see it on my toolbox across the way. So it comes equipped with this light laser that fits into the body of the gun, and it's adjusted here and here with Allen keys. It's hilarious. It's a fun little gun. This thing only feeds ball ammo, at least with my experience. Any kind of hollow point or defensive ammo I've tried to feed through it doesn't feed very consistently. And in their infinite wisdom, they don't have the standard thumb release for the magazine. You have to pinch the sides and extract it that way. So I don't know. I can't see any problems with this design by having plastic pinchable magazines. I think
that was sarcasm.
That was. This should hold up really well for the foreseeable future. It does come with 2 magazines, probably anticipating the problems. And the highlight of the whole thing is its intuitive sight picture, which let me go ahead and drop the slide. You notice there is no sight on the gun, on the top of the gun. You aim down this X on the back, which is an interesting idea because that centers you right with the bore of the gun. But if you're pointing the thing, up near eye level, it obscures the target. So what you see is this square of the slide, and it's obscuring the target over here. But it works once you figure it out. You just can't see the target if it's small. Interesting idea. So I'm going to go ahead and take it apart. And this gun violates 2 of my rules about guns that I own. One being you shouldn't have to have tools to take it apart. And 2, I hate that you have to put the magazine in to pull the trigger. Just drives me nuts. I'm sure there's a trigger disconnect in here that if I bothered to take it apart, I could probably fix. But anyway, to take this one apart, so I'm going to lock the slide back. Whoops, drop the gun. And then what you have to do is pull this little pin. Let me grab a pointer here so that we can make some sense of this. So you have to get this little pin out, and you have to reach back behind it with something and slide that little pin out like so. And then let's see here if I can remember how to do this. It's not a gun I take apart and clean very often. There we go. Then the top slides off and magazine out. And then it has the, everybody's pretty used to this setup with the recoil springs and guide rod. This one, interestingly, and I don't know why they couldn't just put a different spring in it, but it has 2 springs, one inside the other. So if I can get it out of there. But there are 2 recoil springs. Well, it must be to tame the massive recoil of the 380 round. I'm not sure. But you'll see that there's a spring inside a spring that then fits over the guide rod. Why you wouldn't just strengthen this spring, I don't know. But and then your barrel just comes out like so. And you'll notice the barrel is tapered as well. It looks like some Bubba went at this thing with a grinder And maybe that's how they make it. I don't know, just some Brazilian Bubba, but it's done that way to be rounded like the front of the slide is. It's to match that contour there. It's kind of weird. Um, I've never taken this gun apart much further than this because I just don't shoot it very often. So I'm not going to do it here and then not be able to get it back together. It is all polymer, with the exception of the slide and the barrel. Everything else, well, and the rails. But this thing is fairly lightweight for what it is. But that's the Taurus Curve, kind of in a nutshell. It's hilarious and not horribly accurate, not horribly reliable, as we've come to expect from Taurus firearms. Let me see if I can put it back together. This is all pretty standard, just the reverse of taking it apart. Okay, and then you have to put this little pin back in. Yeah. Let me try it. Start the pin first. Yes. So would I recommend this gun? No, I wouldn't. Unless you just buy it like I did for the pure entertainment value. But see, and another wonderful feature of the Taurus Curve, first of all, the trigger's dead with the magazine out, which I don't like. For one, it forces you to pull the trigger to disassemble the gun, and two, should your magazine drop and you have a round in the chamber, the gun's dead. I like the idea that if there were some sort of a magazine malfunction, you would still at least have the round in the chamber at your disposal, but you don't. Watch the trigger pull on this thing is hilarious. So there it is, cocked and locked and ready to go. Look how far the take up is on this thing. It's like 1.5 inches, and then it breaks. It's hilarious. There's a mile of take up on this gun. But the nice thing is there's like 3 walls in it. You feel a little hitch there, another one right there, and then it breaks. So it's got just an awful trigger pull. The final break is actually pretty clean, but you have to go through the previous breaks to get to it. And it breaks almost all the way back at the frame. See, that's still not engaged, or move the sear out of the way right there. So anyway, that's the Taurus Curve. It's a beauty. I usually bring it out on range days when people are getting pretentious about their guns and bragging about some wonderful, new gun that they bought. And I like to bring this out and start shooting with it, just to kind of keep myself grounded. Next up is the venerable HiPoint C9. And this gun is, anybody that's owned one, they are reliable and they'll actually hit what you aim at, but they weigh a ton. This is all just cheap pot metal. I don't remember what the alloy is, but the slide weighs a ton. The frame is polymer, and it feels like just cheap plastic. It feels like the plastic on a Nerf gun.
Hey Scott, we got a question on this one.
Sure.
Are there where did it go? Is there more currency printed on those grips than you actually forked over for the gun?
Oh, by a large margin. Yes. Right. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 500 per side, I would assume, which is, I don't know, on Reddit, in certain of the gun forums on Reddit, the HiPoint is a unit of currency. So a HiPoint equals approximately $100. So they'll quote the price of things in HiPoints. And, I bought my new AR for 5 HiPoints. And I'm sure that's where it comes from. They had one of these that was dipped with a $100 bill finish throughout on the frame and the slide. And the next time I see one, I'm going to grab it. It's a timeless classic. This was as close as I could get, was finding these grips. They were available on HiPoint's website. They have some hilarious hilarious grips that you can buy for these things. This is the C9, which is the 9mm. They make a 380 and a 45 ACP, and I believe a 40 cal. They all weigh a ton. But you know, the nice thing is you have a single stack magazine, so you're limited to, I think I remember right, it's 9 or 10 rounds on this thing. It's just the crudest but effective firearm. It is straight blowback. That's why the frame is, or the slide is so heavy. It's using the mass of the frame to slow down the, you know, the action of the gun. So it weighs a ton. But you can get these ridiculous extended magazines for these things, or you'll see sometimes they make a carbine as well, which is actually pretty cheap and actually a lot of fun. But once again, they're heavy, and the magazines are coupled together and they make kind of a boomerang shape, which is really funny and ugly. But they're once again single stack as well. So let's go ahead and take this thing apart and get into the guts of it. So,
hey, Scott, before you start doing that, can you go back to the curve for one question?
Sure.
What's the reset like?
Well, let's give it a whirl. Cock it. Let me pull the trigger. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's right about where the initial trigger breaks, a little bit beyond that. So there's our break. Our reset is right there. So it's not horrible. I mean, at least it doesn't have to come all the way back out. You know, your finger would get quite a workout having to shoot it that way. But it's not the worst in the world. And I don't remember the gun being particularly snappy or having any really horrible characteristics when it comes to handling them, other than the awkwardness of it. You know, because it's curved, it sort of doesn't bother you right-handed, but if you go to shoot it offhand, this would be really weird for a lefty. And I don't think they made a left-handed version of this thing. So I really, if I were left-handed, I probably wouldn't like holding this at all. But you know, for a righty, it's a terrible concealed gun. So we'll go ahead and take the grips off of this thing, which are just a standard Phillips screwdriver. Get all these bits out of my way. I was working on Danny's gun over the weekend and had everything stacked up like house of cards here. Take this tip off, put that on. I love that it's not even a slotted screw or a Allen or anything like that. It's just a straight old Phillips screwdriver. I'm sure you could probably find most of the parts for this, you know, pins and stuff like that on Ace Hardware. Well, you know, like I always preach against prying grips off of guns, but this is a HiPoint, and I can't think of any better way to do it. There. I think it's appropriate. So get this one off here. Not sure why that's in my way. Why is it? Maybe it won't come off until the slide's off. Anyway, you get a view of the fine workmanship and the quality materials used in this gun. I'm sure that this wire is probably just coat hanger, but I can't express to you the cheapness of it. I can't describe that accurately to you, but it is awful. But to get this one apart is even worse than, I believe that's our magazine disconnect. There's a little roll pin right here. So you have to lock your slide back and then knock that roll pin out to just field strip this gun. And I think HiPoint doesn't even recommend that you take it apart to clean it. I think the thinking is that these are meant to be thrown in a ditch when they stop working. I don't think they're meant to be cleaned in any way. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my punch out. Let's see if I can find the right one. That'll work. So what I do like, I think it is appropriate that you do need a hammer to field strip this gun. That's somehow appropriate to me. So you knock that pin out. So pin's out right here. And it's just a standard roll pin. And then you release the slide, and then you kind of move it. You have to move it into position back, and then it comes up like that. So here's your slide. And you have this piece that's called a doll's head. This is what the roll pin is sliding through. There's a little hole right here, and then this goes up into the slide, and this is what kind of holds it all together. I'm not sure if that's metal of some kind. I don't know if it's steel, but now the slide is pretty standard. It has these two little, we'll just pull the whole spring out. So this is your triggers or your firing pin spring right there. And it has this weird little rubber insulator on it. There's two of them that ride on this spring. And I'm not sure what they're there for. Maybe to keep the spring centered in this channel. I don't know, but it's just weird that they're there. And then the firing pin comes out of this channel right here. And there's your firing pin. Nothing spectacular about it. And that's as far as I have taken this apart. I don't know what else is in this frame. Maybe the extractor. And it looks like maybe there's a detent or a spring or something in there that holds that in place. But this thing weighs more than most guns. It is just awful. You can see how thick and chunky that thing is. But they were going to, I don't know if people are familiar with the HiPoint brand, but a couple of years ago, they released an updated version of this gun. And where they at SHOT Show, they said, hey, we have a new HiPoint. And they sent it out to the internet to submit names. You know, what should we call this new gun? And the overwhelming favorite was the yeet cannon. And if you're not familiar with yeet means to throw something. And the joke is, of course, with the HiPoint is if when you're done shooting and if you haven't hit them yet, you could at least throw the HiPoint at them and do a significant amount of damage. So the overwhelming favorite was yeet cannon, and HiPoint kind of hemmed and hawed about that. And then they finally said, yeah, okay, well, we're going to go with it. You know, we'll own the brand. And they said they were going to create the yeet cannon. The next iteration of this gun was going to be the yeet cannon. But instead, they cheaped out, and you'll see some of these old C9s where they've laser engraved along the side and filled it with white paint, and it says Yeet Cannon 1. So to me, it cheapens it. I want a Yeet Cannon 2 with all the new space age features. I'm not going to settle for their shenanigans. You'll see on this one, I don't know if it's coming through very well, but I color filled this with gold model airplane paint. I figured that gold was classy, and I wanted my HiPoint to be classy. So put this doll's head back in. And when you're putting this back in, of course, you have to be cognizant of where that pin goes through. So you want to put it in oriented the correct way. We'll set that aside. And then over here, we have our barrel. There's our barrel and feed ramp. Yeah, I love this. This is, I don't know if this barrel was powder coated or what finish they put on there, but it's just flaking off like cheap spray paint, which is really appropriate for this gun. And on this one, there's like 9 lands and grooves in this. I don't know why. Most gun barrels do not contain that many lands and grooves, but makes it easy to clean the barrel once you get it apart. But I think they recommend that you don't take the gun apart and that you just clean it from the crown side. There's your polished feed ramp right there. It's also been rattle canned or whatever with the same finish on the rest of the gun. This here's your sear. And to get this out, you can just pull this off. Pull your sear out. I think maybe someday when I get really bored, I'll polish these parts and see how good I can make a HiPoint trigger. but that's your sear. And there's a little spring in it right here that looks, I don't know if they lube this from the factory with earwax, but that's exactly what that lubricant looks like. But there is a spring in there. I don't know if you can see the earwax. But anyway, that's the sear in all its glory. Yeah, it's gross down there. Let's just cover it back up. And put this thing back together. All righty. And let's see any other features on this wonderful firearm. There, we can take this grip side off. If I'm not mistaken, the safety just pops right out of these things. And all it does is block that sear. So you can see, I mean, it's good to show you kind of how some of this stuff works. So right here, this radius keeps this sear from moving. When you move the safety down, right there, well, or out of your way, it allows the sear to drop, which then releases the striker to hit the firing pin. So this is a sear, and that's kind of it is neat in its simplicity because it kind of shows you that interaction between those two parts. So let me put this piece back on. Put this one first. It is a wonderful achievement in firearms development, I tell you. I'm going to hold it together while I put it all back together. Any questions so far about this marvel of modern engineering? And this is all plastic right here. I love this. Spring is all that's used for the magazine release, and it's just hooked on this, which is the slide release. This is done about as low budge as you can get. The funny thing about these is they are really reliable and reasonably accurate for what it is. I think because of the just pure mass that, it's really easy to hold on target because it just doesn't, there's just so much mass that it's hard to get snappy with it. I haven't tried the 40, but anyway, we're going to go ahead and leave out the magazine disconnect.
I was going to say there's no questions about it, but there's quite a bit of conversation on the Facebook about it. And one of the comments was that they are cheap and terrible, but surprisingly accurate and reliable.
Yeah. Yeah, they are terrible. But the other wonderful thing about HiPoints is the warranty is amazing. No matter what you do to this thing, HiPoint will warranty it and replace it or fix it for free. I was reading about a guy that had a house fire, and it was like in the garage or something, and the house burned to the ground. And of course, this thing was just a glob of plastic and pot metal. He sent it back to HiPoint, and they replaced it. So you can't argue with that. And when I first got this, I dropped it and busted the one of the sights off of it. And I called HiPoint and said, I need to order a new front sight. They took my address and just sent me a whole package of like 2 or 3 sights. And that's why I have the peep sights mounted on the side of the frame.
So they knew you were going to do it at least one more time.
Probably, yeah. Well, they give you the regular sights, and then they give you the peep sights, in the event that you want to run peep sights on it.
Well, I would say that considering a burnt and melted gun is covered under warranty, then it should be on roster for California.
Yeah. Well, but it doesn't have a loaded chamber indicator.
Well, I mean, as much as we have fires here.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the reasons it's not for sale in some states is because they have this weird law to avoid Saturday night specials coming into the state that have a melting point consideration. So if the metal of the gun itself melts below a certain point, it can't be sold because it's cheap pot metal. So these are outlawed, I think, in some states. I can't recall what states. Somewhere in the Midwest, you're not allowed to own these because of that reason.
Scott, I just want to just shout out to the HiPoint lawyers when you send me the cease and desist.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, I got to say, though, I am impressed with their warranty and the durability of this thing, because if you search on YouTube, you'll see plenty of videos where people have willfully tried to destroy these things. Demolition Ranch has a couple of them where he's tried to wreck one of these, and it took an ungodly amount of effort to break one. There's a few videos where people have tried to destroy them. So here's a good idea of how this roll pin holder works. You'll see the hole, and I just put that in there, and whoops, and then it just drops it out of sight. But when you're doing a gas block, that little pin is tiny, so you just put it right there, give it a little tap up, and wait.
It looks like those states are Illinois, Wisconsin, and Minnesota from what we can find.
Yeah. So now you can see it started that little punch and or the little pin, and now I can just drive it home. Oops. Oh, I'm gonna get that back in place. I had that not seat properly.
And now for the entertainment part of the evening.
Yeah, heck yeah. Let me get that pin back out of there. Now this thing is hilarious. I love this gun. Pure entertainment. I should have brought it for Danny. She didn't know I had it until she saw it in the safe, though, and she loved the $100 grips. She was impressed. I could tell she thought I was rich when she saw this gun.
It might be on my wish list.
Yeah. Well, you should own one. Probably not on the roster, though.
Cheap and reliable sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Well, the California premium for a HiPoint would be an extra $30.
Which is 1/3 again the cost of one.
And again, if Wildfire is under warranty, I think that's a good investment.
Absolutely. Well, if you feel the need to carry a truck gun, I think this would be the ultimate truck gun, because I don't like to leave things in my car, especially firearms. But if somebody were to break in and steal this one, you'd be like, okay. Versus a quality firearm. So that may be one of the redeeming factor, selling points of one of these, is that, the loss of it isn't going to kill you. But anyway, there's the HiPoint. Let me get the magazine.
Is that it? That's all the junk you got?
Those are my two favorites. As far as the well, I mean, I always have other junk guns. I think I covered this one on a video once. I bought it at an auction for $20 and got it running.
Yep.
And this is the 1898 equivalent of the HiPoint. This is its long, lost 15th cousin, which is, wonderful, because it is meant to do this. The cylinder spins under the best of circumstances, but I did get it running. And I have fired it. It's 32 Smith & Wesson, which is a thundering cartridge. But I think this is the relative of this. This is the early equivalent of it. As far as cheap meme guns, those are the only two I own. I am always on the lookout for weird and wonderful guns. That's why I was trying to buy Legal Mark's Kmart shotgun, because I had some plans for that one. So we may still work out a deal on that. And I might just do a YouTube or a Bench Doctor series on upgrading and modifying that thing into a coach gun. I won't tell you my plans for the coach gun, but it will be spectacular.
That sounds exciting.
Yeah.
We need to get you some more junk.
Yeah. Send me your junk. Send me your broken junk, and I'll see if I can fix it. Or just send me your broken guns, and I'll see if I can.
I'm seeing in the chat, I think they're saying it's Wisconsin, Illinois, and Minnesota that the HiPoints, because of their melting point, are illegal. But we can verify that. Obey your local laws. Don't bring a HiPoint into a state that you're not allowed to have one. As far as I know, they're not illegal in Massachusetts, which is weird.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're going to risk jail for a firearm, don't make it a HiPoint.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd have any street cred in the, if you were, what are you in for? Trafficking in HiPoints. But I do have a a special mag pouch for this, which is a zippered pouch that is a copy of an evidence folder from the DA's office. So that's what I transport this in to the range, as an evidence bag, which I think is perfectly appropriate for this gun. But next time anybody's in town, if you'd like, I'll bring it and you can shoot it all you want. You won't break it. So,
All right. Well, I think are we wrapped up for the night?
I think so, unless
short
anybody has
episode.
any other criticisms or questions or comments.
Other than you need more junk.
I do, and I'm always on the lookout. I'm scouring auctions nightly to try to find something interesting, either historically interesting or horribly interesting. But you get into these weird auctions where people pay obscene amounts of money for the dumbest things. You know, broken firearms, and people are paying 3 times what the gun's worth in the best of condition. I've seen HiPoints go way.
I have a suggestion. You need to find a Jennings 22 or
Oh
anything.
yes, I had a Davis 380, which was made by the same Ring of Fire company.
Yeah.
And it was horrible. And they had the 380 itself had a reputation for blowing up in people's faces. So it was an adventure. I finally unloaded that on somebody. With
the J22 is made out of milled aluminum.
Oh, well, yeah. I will pick up a Ring of Fire gun somewhere. One of the Jennings. I can't think of the others. There was Jennings, Raven,
Brico Jennings,
Davis, Brico,
Juarez, no, something like that. They're a number of the same thing. They're all basically the same gun. So we'll see if we can find you a Jennings. A J22 is less likely to explode on you than the 380 version. So
I'll keep an eye out for one, and I'll grab one at an auction if I see it, just for the fun of it.
There was also a comment that we need to get you a Jimenez arms.
Oh, it's Jimenez.
That's Jimenez. Yeah,
Jimenez,
that's one of the Ring of Fire.
Jimenez Arms is basically a Jennings, which is basically a Brico Jennings, which is basically all the others. They're the same guns. They suck.
It was the original company, I think, was Jennings, and then they got sued. So they opened a new company and called it like Brico. And then then each kid of the family opened their own brand, but they were all the same gun.
Yeah.
Or same series of guns. And I think they just did it for legal reasons to avoid, you could only sue one entity. And so the others would survive. And they finally got shut down. I think a lot of laws, Saturday Night Special laws, kind of made them shut down eventually.
They are cheap crap.
They are awful. They're dangerous, though. I mean, a lot of them are not just cheap, they're dangerous. Neither of these two guns, they're cheap, but they're not dangerous. I have had no problems with them. I have no fear of them blowing up in my hand, but a Davis 380 scares me.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.
All right.
Danny, next week we've got a special panel, right?
Well, first of all, will you ever do a CNR video?
You mean on CNR guns?
I don't know. This guy said, will you do a CNR video? So yeah, probably.
Well, yeah, we could talk about it. I have several, a lot of guns that are CNR eligible, or type 03 FFL, I think is maybe hopefully what they're referring to, which is a type of FFL that allows you to, it's curios and relics. And we could talk about that, and I could show some examples of CNR guns.
You actually already did a collector special
surplus guns
like 3 months ago. So we'll post that back in the wherever the question's being asked. Check out the YouTube channel and go back a little bit. I know Scott's done the Grand. I know he's done a couple of what to look for in a collectible gun. And most of those guns were indeed CNR eligible. So,
Scott, didn't you do a Mosin also?
I've showed the Mosin a couple of times, but never really talked much about it. But I was thinking, interestingly, some of the most interesting guns I have are roller delayed blowback, which would be kind of fun to talk about because it's another.
Your HK.
Yeah. I'll take apart my HK 43 and talk about roller delayed blowback guns. Because there are a lot of them still out there.
Anyway, so for whoever asked the question, go back a couple of months. There's a couple of CNR related videos that we've done. And the tag us in the comments of those videos if you want to see more, and we'll schedule something.
Yeah.
So next week, Danny.
Next week, we're going to have an experience panel. We're going to have a doctor who her focus is on dementia studies, and she's going to be talking about dementia patients and firearms access. So if you have any older folks in your life that you care for who may have been gun owners in the past, all of your questions and topics are going to be addressed. I think it's going to be a really special thing, and I hope everybody tunes in for that. The link is up on the website, so please log into the LGC website with your member number and register for that. Then you'll get a Zoom code to join us live next Tuesday.
Yeah, and I participated in her research study, and she's one of the good ones. So
We always knew that you were on your way to dementia.
I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah. She's one of the good ones. So it's not your typical take your guns away kind of conversation. So
yeah,
it'll be a good thing. She's a smart lady, and I'm really looking forward to that as well. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and kill the recording.